Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Let's do a 420. I think I have an interesting one. It's not far off. Like it's built purely in our physical matter reality, but I think it's interesting nonetheless. Because there's a component to it that's not really in our reality, and yet is firmly entrenched in our reality. Or a reality. Let's say it that way. So blaze one if you got one. What I have in the background is a Star Trek scene from Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine, and forgive me, I need to give a little backstory just in case somebody's watching this that doesn't know about this. Deep Space Nine was the I think third generation of Star Trek in regards to the series. Instead of it being a starship, it was an outpost, space station, a Cardassian space station. Cardassian being one of the races. In the last few seasons, they were embroiled into a war, a galactic war, multiple civilizations. And to understand the scale of this, we're not talking about no pity any civil war or no pity any world war. We're talking about galactic, and not just galactic, different star systems, completely different star systems. Like, so you can understand what was at stake. Germany was completely obliterated in that war. It was a war of total destruction in the sense of we will crush them in order to take them because nobody is necessarily going to surrender. Well, they weren't at that point, but you can understand with that scale, where you're talking about a galaxy, one is fighting to prevent the other one from taking over. You had a race called the Dominion. This race was of shapeshifters. They had the ability to change shape. Because they had the ability to change shape, their perspective of people who were solids weren't necessarily the best. Now, they had their reasons for this, but ultimately they created a race called the Jem Hadar to fight for them, to be their warriors and to be their soldiers, genetically. They also gave them a genetic defect that would allow the Jem Hadar's obedience, meaning not only did they build into them their intellect and everything else, their consciousness in the sense of, yes, you will be our loyal servants. You will see us as gods. Period. They also built in this thing of, if they don't get a particular chemical within X number of hours, their body kind of goes through withdrawals. Significant withdrawals that will eventually kill them. So they were leashed in two ways. Genetically, meaning genetic predisposition to worship these guys, and chemically, to compel their obedience in case the first one failed. This is a warrior race. Now, Cleons go all the way back to the first series. There's a Cleon on this ship, Worf. Now, Worf was originally part of Next Generation. Worf had human parents. Now, having human parents, I believe, made him more Cleon. It's almost like you were raised in a home with, I give an example. It's like, you could take this two different ways. You could say, I'm just me, whatever, I don't care. Or you can have some psychological thing where you feel like there's a chip on your shoulder and you overcompensate. So it's, is Hillary Clinton just that hawkish, or is she overcompensating in order to diminish this image of a woman being more compassionate and more willing to compromise? Is that kid who was raised by, I'm trying to think of another situation, but I would think of somebody being raised by somebody else, and then because they were raised by it, they try to identify with that particular culture or whatever, their own culture. But in identifying with that culture, they go overboard. Think of like a black kid raised with two white parents. That kid learns more about his culture, more about his history, and in doing so, he tries to become that much more of whatever he himself considers blackness. I'm saying you can come up with any perspective in a sense, and the person can come out whichever way they come out. I'm saying I'm making a point that in this particular case, Worf seems to have been this way. He's extraordinarily Cleon despite his human upbringing or despite his human interaction. Now, he gets taken on a planet. They get captured. As they're captured, they're put on an asteroid. And in the asteroid, there are other Jem Hadar there. There are also other prisoners there. Now, anytime they get a Cleon, they're excited because they're going to make that Cleon fight against the other soldiers, using that Cleon as a way of training their soldiers, essentially using them until that person expires. Yes, it's hellish, but they are prisoners and they are in a war for galactic domination. Now, Worf is no slouch. Worf is no slouch. He is a Cleon warrior. He is a Cleon warrior's warrior. Like I said, overcompensates. The man is fucking awesome. And if you're in a battle, that's the guy you want to be standing beside. That's how he's just badass in general. Put it this way, I've never seen Worf get his ass kicked in a Star Trek series. I've seen him beast out. I've seen him blow off Star Trek regulation in order for issues of honor and go and murder a guy on another ship. Like, so you must understand the quantity that we're dealing with. Cleons are predisposed to anger and all of these things. Worf is captured. Now, right off the bat, there's a certain diminishing from being captured because death is preferable to being captured. They make him fight. He fights the first one, destroys him. Second one, destroys him. Third one, destroys him. Now, it gets to the point, though, that they're making him fight over and over and over and over. And he's getting tired. He's not, he's still a physical being of sorts, regardless of how magnificent, strong he is. He starts to get injured, but he's still winning. One round after the next, he's winning. And mind you, these are all people. When I'm saying one round, I'm talking about he's going through one person after the next, after the next. Yes, some of them are injuring them, some of them are getting scoring in, but ultimately those people still lose and they fall before him. He's injured. He's injured badly. The ribs are broken. I think he has some other kind of contusions, scars, all this stuff. He's badly injured. And one of the other Cleons is there that had been put through the same ringer, had lost an eye. He tells him, you don't have to do this. And he looks at him, he knows what's going on. Worf, in his mind, it's preferable to death to dishonor. Meaning, yes, he's going back out there. And yes, he's going to have that fight. He fights, he goes into the ring, beats the guy. He says, who's next? You have nobody else to fight me. Mind you, he is all fucked up when he's saying this. He is injured and everything else. He's like, you have no one else to fight me. And then the guy who's in charge, a guy that you just implicitly know is a badass, probably the best there, meaning he's the one in charge. He's the guy. After Worf has fought all these people, I'll be your opponent. This guy beats the shit out of Worf. Worf is already injured. Worf, at a certain point, despite being beaten, despite being hurt, despite being injured, despite having contusion, broken ribs, all of these things, he still tries to get up. He still tries to get up. The other Cleon comes and says, your honor is intact. You've done what you could do. Worf throws him away, still gets up, beaten down again. Now the soldier, at a certain point, looks at Worf and says, and looks at his commanding officer, because again, he's a Gemini, he's a soldier, he's captive to somebody else. There's another race that was built over top of the to manage him, but that particular race, or that guy who was there managing him, he looks at him and says, I can't beat this man, I can only kill this man. That is so goddamn epic. Yes, I have the power to kill him, but what does that mean? That doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything. Beating him is what I want to do, not murdering him. There's a difference in those things. I want him to capitulate, and there is nothing that I can do to this person to make him capitulate in this process. Now, to Worf's credit, I want to look at the perspectives here, because it's kind of amazing. They're on a prison asteroid, and having this thing, Worf and this other guy has come to some agreement, not having a conversation with. But the very fact that he understands what Worf is doing means, to some level, he understands Worf, or he understands some aspect of him. They're sharing a reality in this particular place. Now, this guy can be in all sorts of realities and all sorts of things that he may have interest in, but in this very moment, he is sharing a reality with another being to which he's at war with. And in sharing that reality, they agree on this warrior's mentality of sorts. I can't beat this man. I can only kill him. His goal was to beat him, to break him. That's what he wanted to do. That's how he got his jollies. And to some degree, he failed in that task, in which case Worf won, even though Worf could have been killed at any particular time. Now, the interesting part of this is, all of this is just going on in their heads. That's all. The sobering, cold reality is, somebody was captured in a war. That person was being essentially tortured. And at any point in time, they could have just murdered him and went and ate some cornflakes. but the reality to which they were existing in, that's their own reality. Like, the guy who's in charge, supervisor, he says, kill him and get out of here. Now, understand, he's not sharing that same reality. His reality is what I just said. A prisoner was captured. You're training your soldiers against that prisoner. Now you can kill that prisoner. We can go get our cornflakes. The realities. What I'm getting at is realities that these people are existing in. One person is existing in reality of, this is just procedure. This is just typical. This is just a typical day. The other person, the soldier, is existing in the reality of, I respect this man. And in some degree, I've been bested by this man. Not physically. Because it's too easy to best him physically. I can't necessarily use that as my criteria. It's like if we were playing chess and I only had a queen and a king and you beat me. So what? I only had a queen and a king. But you can create a different rule set. Meaning he's creating a different rule set in his head about what success means. In this case, success wasn't to kill Worf. Success was to break Worf. The fact that Worf did not break was in some degree his loss in that, despite Worf being in that position that he's completely vulnerable and can no longer protect himself. I find this to be absolutely intriguing. Like, how people get into mind states. I know for myself, if I'm listening to music, that music can take me to a particular point, particularly if I'm buzzed. It can take me into very multiple realities, in which case my heart center is intact, like where my heart center is just beating out of my chest, where it's like, oh, I love my wife. I love my wife. And other times it could be cold and methodical, and other times it could be somewhat aggressive. Just depends on what it is. But the point I'm getting at is the way you float between these things. And in each particular case, what you're focusing on at that particular time is the most real thing to you in the world. And yet you can easily float to another state, and that would be the most realist thing in the world. That soldier on any other day could have just killed him and went on his way. For whatever reason, for this particular day, at this particular time, this particular soldier was in a particular mind state where he was at the very least had some level of agreement and understanding with the person that he was subordinating and the person he could have killed. Any of the people there could have had different mind states. That's the part I find fascinating. All of them are experiencing reality. All of them are there together. All of them are experiencing completely different realities. The reality that closely matched was the one between Worf and the soldier. That was the one where there was some level of agreement. I suspect part of the agreement was that ultimately that Jem Hadar is also captured. He's also captured. He's a slave. Worf is a prisoner, but both of them are captured. Regardless of his task being to murder Worf, ultimately he still probably has to understand or recognize that he himself is captive. That being said, I just love their brain states. I love this idea of, think of all the personalities that could have been in that situation from the soldier's perspective, the other guy's perspective. Many of them wouldn't have understood what was going on with Worf at all. They wouldn't have cared. They would have murdered him, went on their way. Now for Worf, this is different. This is my culture, the things in me that I value. Now those things that he values aren't necessarily real. Those are just things he himself has decided to value. But those things that he put weight on, either from culture, either from experience, those things that he says, of all the things in the world, these are the things that I hold true in regards to my core values of self. And I will not break those, even in this trial. Meaning, as a Cleon, I am supposed to die with honor. And even if that means me getting beat to death, I am going to die with honor. That's amazing. That's amazing. That's amazing. I love that episode. It's one of my favorite episodes. Dude, he's just taking this massive beating. And he continues to get up over and over and over again. And nothing they can do can keep him down. And it doesn't matter what takes place. He's still getting up. And the guy finally acknowledges, I can't kill him. I can't beat him. I can't beat him. Like I said, think of the brain states. Think of you as you go through your day. And think of how you're feeling and how you're thinking at any particular time. And as you're thinking about that, think of how other people are also experiencing that particular reality. What you'll find is they're experiencing something different, even though you guys are there together. Even though you're there together. Guardians of the Galaxy, there's a scene where I think the woman's life gets saved. It was the robotic one. And The guy's taking her to a ship. He says, hey, okay, I'm going to give you a ship. And he says, well, you have a good one. And she's like, a good one? I'm going to track down my sister. I'm going to murder her. Then I'm going to go murder my father. And he's like, whoa, okay. That's kind of heavy. Understand the reality that she's experiencing, though. Like, that's her reality. Like, of all things, like, he's not going to get it. But that's particularly her reality. That's the thing that's running through her head all the time. That's how she experiences the world. That's the coloring. That's the cognitive coloring that her world is given. I find that to be amazing. It's just a weird thing in the sense of perception. Like what the states that people inhabit. And, sometimes you realize, yeah, the states that we're inhabiting are vastly different. We're experiencing the same thing. We're right here together. But we are experiencing this reality in monstrously different ways. Sometimes think of somebody who's more insecure, somebody who's braggadocious, somebody who's more sensitive. All those people have a certain coloring and weighing of things, how they perceive it. In this particular very specific case, you had somebody from completely different cultures understanding one another and coming to some agreement, even though the agreement was never spoken. Understanding is agreement. I agree that this is true. He agreed that what Worf was going through was true, meaning that beating that he was taking and not giving up. He understood what was taking place, even though completely different star system, completely at war. The agreement that they met, or the agreement, and I understand why I'm saying agreement. If he would have shot Worf and went to eat cornflakes, then he would have understood what Worf was doing and why Worf was going through this. The fact that he understood it meant to some degree he agreed with him, even though the agreement was never stated. Same thing with you in your life. You interact with people, somebody would say something, and you may get mad at the person. You may feel some kind of way about it. But to some degree, that's, if you didn't agree with the person, what the person is saying, would you get mad? Now, some of this is not really fair, because some of it has to do with that person is intending to be an asshole. And so it's not what they said, it's the fact that they were intending to be an asshole. So fair enough. I'm just saying, in some particular cases, the things that hurt the most require some level of agreement that those things were real. He agreed with Worf that those things of value that Worf had were actually of value. I agree with you, Cleon, that the things you value that's keeping you trying to get up, I agree with those things. That's amazing. I mean, it was just an awesome show. Alright guys, if you enjoyed the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and you can always support the work through Patreon. Thank you.